All right, guys, we are back here on College Basketball Review Studio, teams 20 through 11 here in CBB rank. We've had 8 episodes so far going over the first 80 teams in our countdown. Dan Siegel, Ariel, Puterman along with me today for the teams 20 through 11. We are into national championship contender range. I've asked you guys about it every episode about, hey, what do we feel about these teams? I feel like I don't even need to do that this time, so let's just jump right into it because we all know that we are in the thick of it, right? These are teams with Final Four outlooks. Let's go to number 20 with a team that had a crazy offseason because the offseason literally was just like a couple weeks ago for them, and that is Auburn, Bruce Pearl retiring, and Stephen Pearl stepping in. Guys, I'll go to Ariel first. Look, the Pearl family is still there, but can Stephen do even half the job or live up to what Bruce just did with Auburn?
It's going to be so hard for him to live up. I mean, Auburn was fine, back in the Charles Barkley days, but when he took over, they were not in that state. What he's done to turn around this program and make them a team that could compete for a 1 seed like they did last year in a Final Four team. I think Stephen's a fine coach, and it's a little bit unfair at the standards that they're giving him, but deservedly so. So I'm excited to watch him. Who I'm more excited to watch is Tahad Pettiford. He's probably my favorite player to watch last year. I mean, he's just as explosive he gets. He hits the big shots. He gets to the lane. And he's a little guy, too, like me. I'm a little bit shorter than him, but he's just a firecracker. And then Keyshawn Hall, Big 12 guy from UCF. He's a high-level scorer, a lefty like me. So combining Auburn's basically like a combo of me as a basketball player, but if I was good at all these things. So they'll be a cool team. Obviously, they won't be a 1 seed like they were last year, but a top 20 team nonetheless.
Absolutely. I think Stephen Pearl definitely, there's no way around it. He got the job through nepotism, right? Like, I don't think he's had a job other than assistant coach under his father, right? So it's definitely something that I'm skeptical about. I'm not necessarily giving him the benefit of the doubt as a head coach, but he's also not a nobody. Like, he's done some great work on the Auburn bench. So we'll see. Like, they're in on him in the long term. One guy I want to talk about, Elijah Freeman, a highly touted Division II transfer, asked to play a major role on the wing. So that will be very interesting. You talked about Pettiford and Hall. I don't need to reiterate that, but it's hard to imagine a team with those two players being bad. But I definitely see a lot of range of outcomes where like there's stuff that like a coach would have to do to maximize it or minimize it, and that's what kind of worries me. And I don't know if Auburn's necessarily going to finish in the top 25, but they're definitely a tournament team. They can't be bad with Hall and Pettiford.
Yeah, I just worry about, is Pettiford going to be okay doing this with no Janai Broom, right? Like, he steps into that role where it's going to be Tahad Pettiford. I think he's a takeover type of guy, but when you lose Janai Broom, when you lose the guys that Auburn did after a team that made it to the Final Four, I don't see them getting back there, but I do see Auburn still being a team to watch in the SEC for sure. But honestly, I don't know if I'd have them in my top 25. And that was even before the Stephen Pearl, Bruce Pearl thing. I just don't really love this roster compared to other rosters we've talked about. Let's move on to number 19. That is Kansas. Ariel is probably waiting and licking his chops to talk about this Jayhawks team. So because of that, I'm going to hand it over to Dan. So Ariel has to wait a little bit. And I'm also going to put my straw into my Taco Bell, guys, because I've been itching to start drinking my Baja Blast. So excuse me while we podcast and I start drinking my soda. All right.
Got mine here as well. But yeah, I'll hand it over to Ariel. Before I do that, just like Kansas has had a 2-year stretch where they were good, not great, right? And after being like one of the best programs of the sport, they've kind of taken a small step down. It's weird to say, do they have a bounce back year? Because I don't know if that's the best term to say, but they got Darren Peterson. He's a stud. Like, of the big name freshmen, all the freshmen that have been getting all this attention this year, Peterson might actually be the best one of those guys, even if he hasn't gotten quite the buzz compared to the other guys. They have some other pieces, a couple A10 guys that could start. Melvin Council from St. Bonaventure, Jaden Dawson, who averaged 14 for a good Loyola team. And I think Bill Self will elevate this team from a defensive standpoint. No Hunter Dickinson might help that. But yeah, I mean, Ariel, do you agree that this team basically goes as far as Darren Peterson goes?
Absolutely. You said he might be the best freshman in the country. He is the best freshman in the country. And I'll take a step further. I think he's the best player in the country. I mean, you've seen the comparisons. He's getting comparisons to Brandon Roy, T-Mac, even Kobe. This guy's a special talent. Probably, I'd say he's the best guard prospect since John Wall, which is a lot. And he's looked the part. I mean, against Louisville, he had scored 24 points in the first half, hit 6 threes, had 5 steals in that game as well. That's against a top 11 team on the road in your first college basketball game ever. Just an exhibition, but he looked the part in his first game. It will definitely come down to those role players, like you mentioned, Jaden Dawson, Melvin Council, Marco Jackson. If they can kind of step up and really ease the pressure that Darren Peterson's going to get from opponents, then this Kansas team is going to be better than 19. But their floor is a lot lower than some of these other teams, just because if Darren Peterson, even if he is that superstar, if everyone else around him struggles a bit, it could be bad news for this team.
Yeah, I'm just going to make 2 quick comments because you guys had it all. Darren Peterson, I agree. He might be the best player in the country. I do think that's definitely a hot take there because there's a lot of guys you could say. So props to you there.
It's the second best odds on the books, so not too crazy.
That's fair. I mean he's definitely there, and he looked the part. Don't take stock in exhibition games, but he did look the part. I also want to talk about Melvin Council Jr. because obviously I work in Rochester, and he's from Rochester, and came back for a camp this summer. Was just ruthlessly blocking like 4-year-old shots for about 2 hours straight. And I'm just going to say that, like, if that's the attitude, he was joking around, obviously. But if that's the attitude, and I think he has that attitude, like, Kansas is going to be good because that was a great pickup in the portal for them. Let's move on to number 18. You can't spell Arkansas without Kansas, and they are 1 spot ahead, Kansas, here at number 18. John Calipari enters year 2 with the Razorbacks. Look, he continues to recruit well. He continues to bring back players, right? What is it? 4 players from last year's team returning to this Arkansas squad. Kind of hard to believe that in a John Calipari era, but clearly as the rest of college basketball moves one way, Calipari moves the other way. And guys, do we think that he's moving Arkansas into a deep run in March this season? Ariel, why don't you go first?
Sure. And I think yes. I'm going to stay on the freshman theme. I love the freshmen in Arkansas. Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas are both really great players. Darius Acuff might be the second best guard in the country, freshman guard behind Darren Peterson. And then I really like those returners. I think losing Boogie Fland is an addition more than a subtraction. They were really bad when he was on the court, and then he got hurt, and they turned their season around. Like he was fine in the tournament when they made the Sweet 16, but he was not great last year. And I think by opening up the offense to those freshmen is really going to help. I really love Billy Richmond, like I said. I think Carter Knox is a good player too. So I think this team will be good. SEC is obviously going to be tough, but this feels like a Calipari team. Just a lot of young guys, a lot of really talented guards, guys who want to win. So this should be a fun team to watch at the very least.
Yeah, that's basically what I think. Like I'm not the first to say this, but this reminds me of like what John Calipari really wanted to do and was able to do at Kentucky. Just a lot of athletes, a lot of young guys, some returners. You know, they do have, I think, a little bit better of like rebounding guys than previous years, whether it's Malik Ewan or Nick Pringle. Ewan from Florida State, Pringle from South Carolina, that start the center spot. I think that should be a key aspect to that team right there. You got Trayvon Brazile, who is back and has really been a staple for the program. Like he's been there for the really bad Arkansas teams he was there for. So it's good to see him finally reap the rewards of sticking around there. And yeah, I think like Kansas, this team will go as far as their true freshman star goes. Well, I mean, I guess I don't trust Acuff quite as much as Peterson, and they have better surrounding pieces. So maybe it's not a quite an apples to apples comparison, but I think it's pretty similar.
100%. I think Arkansas is definitely going to be a team to watch in the SEC. How about another team to watch in the SEC? Look at this. Our third SEC team in 4 spots right here. We definitely loaded up around this part in CBB rank. That is number 17, guys. Tennessee. Look, Rick Barnes, he's got to do it at some point, right? I don't know if this is the year that he's going to do it with Tennessee, but I think he definitely has a good squad. What are we thinking about the Volunteers this year who have Jacoby Gillespie from Maryland, Nate Ament, one of the top recruits in the country? Like, they definitely have some talent on this roster. I'm a little bit worried about the guard situation off the bench. Dan, your thoughts on that and overall thoughts on the Vols?
Yeah, I think I mean, I said this in our little CBB review Discord, which we will be making into a little roundtable article soon. I think Tennessee is one of the more underrated teams in the country, and I would have them higher than 17. I believe I did. I mean, we did our rankings a while ago, but in my preseason rankings, I had them just around the top 10. And I think if you look at Rick Barnes and what has made Rick Barnes' team so successful, I think they have elite defense, which, you know, you're losing Jemiah Meshack, you're losing Zakai Ziegler, but you got Felix Okpara back. You have a coach in Rick Barnes. Like, I think the defense is top 5 at the very least, definitely top 10. And then you have a couple of go get me a bucket guys, and that's what I think Jacoby Gillespie will be. That's what I think Ament, the true freshman, will be. He has more offensive promise as a true freshman than I could remember in this program. So that's going to be huge. I really like this Tennessee team. Yes, the depth is not great, especially in the backcourt. Front court, you might have a little more depth there. JP Estrella is a guy I want to highlight, 6'11", kind of a glue guy who might be developing more of an offensive game. He was hurt for a lot of last year. I'm not sure how healthy he is right now, but if he is, that'll be huge. I like Tennessee. I think of the 10 teams we talked about, we underranked them if I were to pick one.
I was looking at Tennessee's roster earlier, and I thought that it was broken because I didn't see Zakai Ziegler on the roster. I just assumed he would be on there. It's going to be weird to watch them without. Kind of like we talked about Ryan Colfer in our last episode. It's going to be weird to see Tennessee without Ziegler. For the third team in a row, though, I think this team really comes down to how good their freshman is, and that's Nate Ament. You mentioned it, Matt, and I think you did as well, Dan. But for some reason, 247 Sports just randomly put him as the number 1 player in their class. He was number 4 forever, and then they just put him as number 1 randomly one day and hope no one would notice. Upside-wise, maybe he's there. I don't think so, but obviously he has a lot of potential, and NBA guys are really liking him. So if he can take that step, the problem with those kinds of guys, those upside guys, is they might not show it in college. And Tennessee, in order to be great, they need him to show that. So I'm putting a lot of faith into him like we are for those other 2 teams, and if he's good, they'll be good. Good news is their defense is going to be great. They're ranked 3rd on Ken Palm, 3rd on Bart Torvik, so I expect them to finish around there. And defense wins championships, so maybe that's what it takes to win the championship this year.
We'll see if Tennessee can do it this season. Obviously, we move out of the SEC to the next team, back to the Big 12. Number 16, guys, in our countdown, Texas Tech. Look, if this team had Darian Williams still, by bringing back what they brought back with JT Toppin and Christian Anderson, I would probably rank Texas Tech in my top 5. I'm going to be honest.
I agree.
But what they did was they got a pretty much clone of Darian Williams by getting Lawan Watts from Washington State. Kind of the same type of player, right? A guy who can score, pass the ball at that size, at 6'6", 225. He can really hit the 3 as well. Shot well over 40% last season. But do we think with what they lost in Darian Williams, and I'll say him and Chance McMillian, Elijah Hawkins was a big loss too. Everyone after that, I don't really think it's going to matter because they brought in a pretty good transfer class. They're not extremely deep, but that starting 5, I think, can still compete with anyone in the country. Ariel, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they're going to be good as last year just because, like you said, they just had so many great pieces and so many options. 3 guys who averaged over 15 points a game is crazy. And then Hawkins, who averaged one of the best assists per game ratios in the country. But Christian Anderson's obviously a guy that everyone loves. I'm glad you mentioned Lawan Watts because I thought he was a really underrated addition for this team. And they play slow. They are projected to have the 334th fastest team in Ken Palm. So a team that relies on the half court. And when you got a guy like JT Toppin you can just throw the ball down to, that's going to make a lot of a difference. And Bamgoy, defensively, he's a great center as well from a defensive standpoint. So I think they'll be good. I think that I have them 3rd in the Big 12, so a little bit worse than last year, but they're still going to be a top 20 team without a doubt, and a team that can make the Sweet 16 without even having to blink.
Yeah, they were the number 5 ranked offense in the country last year per Torvik. Maybe that drops down, but not too much with JT Toppin. Like, he's a true player of the year candidate, the second player of the year candidate that we've talked about in this episode. And Bam Boye, how do you pronounce that? Is it?
I think it's Bam Goye.
Bam. Okay, so I did say it right. The VCU transfer, like a very highly touted defensive addition. I think he could be all Big 12 defensive player. Like you got him and Watts, who will add a lot of defensive value to the team. They were, I think, 60th last year in defense. So I don't know. Like I think they definitely improved that. And you got JT Toppin. Like there's no reason to think that, despite what the analytics say, like Texas Tech is top 15, at least fringe top 15 team to me.
100%. Texas Tech, I think with JT Toppin, you just can't count a team like that out. Let's move on to number 15, Illinois. I'll talk about Illinois first, guys. Talk about teams that, maybe have national championship aspirations. I think that if Brad Underwood can coach this team the way that they can be coached, Illinois is the first team that we've talked about where I would say, look, if this team won the national championship, I wouldn't be surprised. I love this Fighting Illini team, guys. There's a lot I want to talk about. Bringing back Kylan Boswell, getting Andrei Stojakovic from Cal. You've got a great guard. You've got a great scorer there. You've got Ben Humrichus back, a guy who maybe can even shoot the three a little bit better. He shot over 40% at his previous stop. Maybe he just didn't have the best efficiency in year one with Illinois. You've got Tomislav Avicek and Zvonimir Avicek from Arkansas. So Calipari couldn't get him back, but the brothers are now at Illinois together where they could just dominate, right? Like, I mean, you're literally just going to have one of the most dominant centers in college basketball on the court at all times, bar none. David Mirkovic, guys, an international recruit from Montenegro, in a game against, I believe it was Illinois State, he started because Stojakovic was hurt, and he put together a ridiculous stat line of like 19 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists, just totally went off. I don't even think he's going to start, but he's probably going to come off the bench. There's more guys past that, but I want to single out one more guy, Mihajlo Petrovic. A point guard from a Serbian league. Here's some guys in this league, by the way. This is going to take you down a trip down memory lane. Chico Carter, Rashid Suleiman, Rasir Bolton, Yogi Farrell. I'll go up the list a little bit more. McKinley Wright the fourth. Lots of guys that, if you watch college basketball, you know these guys. Mihajlo Petrovic, last season, averaged 7.3 assists. That's more than all those guys. It was second in that league. That's obviously a very good league with some college basketball legends that obviously have gotten better because you just get better when you go to the pros no matter what league you play in. So here's a pro, one of the top pros. By the way, he averaged over 14 a game in this league. So he was right up there in the top 15 in points, number 2 in assists. And now Illinois gets to pair him and Kylan Boswell in the same backcourt. I've ranted on about Illinois, but clearly I think that is a player to watch, and this is a team to watch. I think they're going to win the Big Ten. Dan,
yeah. You said Dan? Yeah, so I think I'd still favor Purdue. I think the gap is a little bit smaller than maybe people want to admit. And talk about some international flair. I remember this viral video that the Illinois social media department posted where it was basically just every single international player like saying their name and their accent, like introducing themselves. And it was just Ty Rodgers. And it was really funny. But yeah, I think Rodgers, by the way, I'm not sure what his status is. He's hurt for, once again, he's dealt with a lot of injury in his career. So that's definitely a storyline to monitor. You talked about it all. I won't go through the players again, but I will say like another thing this team has is 5 guys for the most part in every single lineup combination that could shoot the ball, which is just huge in modern basketball. They do rank outside the top 40 in defense on the analytics site, so that's really where I want to see them improve, and that's where I feel like a top 25, top 20 defensive team. They're a true national championship contender because I'm very bought in on this offense.
Matt, did you purposely wear that shade of orange because you knew you were going to gas up this Illinois team?
I promise I didn't. I promise. This is, of course, from the Syracuse 6 overtime win.
They will not be in these conversations, unfortunately, at 15. But yeah, I think you guys kind of nailed it. I love their size and their shooting. All the metrics models. So Ken Palm, Haslam. I think Haslam has a little bit behind, but Ken Palm, Bartorvik, Evan Maya, they'll all have them as a top 10 team this year. So the analytics trust them, then you should as well.
All right, let's move on to another Big Ten team. Feels weird to say it, but UCLA coming in at number 14. We obviously just had Seth Greenberg on our podcast. the other day, and he said UCLA is one of his Final Four teams, guys. So I'll ask you that. Do you agree with Seth Greenberg? And I asked him on the spot. I don't know if he looked at it more, if he'd still go with UCLA, but he seemed to really like this Bruins team as a team out west to keep an eye on. And I've got to admit, they look like a very cohesive group. You've got Donovan Dent. The bench looks intriguing. Like, I have to admit, I'm all in on Illinois, but UCLA is going to be right there in the Big Ten, right, Ariel?
100%. You mentioned it. Dent is a stud. I don't love him going to a slower tempo because he was so good in the fast break, and he's insanely fast. There's that one clip where I think they were tied or down one with like 5 seconds left. He just dribbled the whole court, went behind his back, and made like a crazy layup to win the game. Like, that's just what he does. And kind of pushing him to the half court wasn't the best decision, but Mick Cronin's also a great coach, so I'm sure they'll figure it out. But they bring back Bilodeau and Daly, who were awesome last year, especially down the stretch. I think that combo, and then plus you mentioned they have the depth, they have the coaching, so this is going to be a great team. I think 14's right where they belong. I can see them finishing in this range as well.
Yeah, Sky Clark there as well. And I worry about the center spot a little bit. Like, Xavier Booker did not play a ton at Michigan State. It's really interesting. Like, if you're transferring out of that Michigan State team, that might be because you just don't have a role there, because Tom Izzo runs a program where you will earn your way up and earn playing time. So that's really interesting. Another option they have is Steven Jamerson. He wasn't great at San Diego. So, what is he going to do for a really good Big Ten team? We'll see. Mick Cronin was able to turn things around last season. There was a time where it wasn't looking great in the Big Ten. He does not love the idea of traveling all this way, and he's made that clear on interviews. But I think he could really turn around the perception of the program, continue to build that momentum, have a star guard, and just be having a better time.
Yeah, I'll admit, I think that UCLA, they're going to shoot the ball well. You look at it in the exhibition games, and honestly, 1 through 4, they've got good shooters. Xavier Booker in that last exhibition game went 2 for 3 from downtown. So you can make the argument that 1 through 5, this team has threats from downtown. I do think that UCLA has a really good team. They've got the star power. They've got a whole lot. So they're going to be a fun team to watch.
One thing I'll add quickly is Xavier Booker was a top 5 recruit at one point in time. Obviously, that was a few years ago, and they don't always pan out, but just something to monitor.
I completely forgot about that. You're right.
Good point. Let's move on to number 13, guys. Back to the SEC for this one. Alabama, the Crimson Tide. Nate Oates still at coach. Obviously, it's a much different Alabama team. No Mark Sears, no Grant Nelson. A couple other guys from the rotation are gone, but we've got a team with LeBaron Philon back, Latrell Wrightsell. So some of the key rotation players, these aren't studs, but these aren't guys that, only averaged 5 or 6 points last year. They both averaged double digits. They're back. Aiden Holloway, potentially could be one of the best 6 men in the country. Scoring is not going to be an issue at Alabama. I wonder if star power and depth is this year, though, because Nate Oates wants to run a lot of guys. And if you look further down that lineup, I'm not sure. I could be wrong, but it looks like a couple freshmen are going to have to step up, and you're going to rely on some mid-major transfers. So maybe not the quality of depth that we've seen in the past.
I do think they have the star power with LeBaron Philon. I think he is a legit NBA prospect at point guard. I think he was very close to putting his name and keeping his name in the draft. And I think he was one of those last minute guys that just completely changed the perception of this Alabama team in the preseason by coming back. But he's going to have a lot of freedom. I think he fully breaks out into that next star. I'm not in love with the front court. That's kind of what worries me. Aiden Sherrill could totally break out as a sophomore. And then they got Jaleel Bethea from Miami, who is another rising sophomore that could, a lot more of a beneficial situation for him here. So that's a really talented guy that could break out. So maybe I wouldn't say I'm not in love with it, but there's some room for downside there, so to speak. But you have Nate Oates and is just my favorite coach in the country, basically, with this just extremely analytical, meticulous, deliberate approach on running his program. And, Alabama has a really loaded non-conference schedule per usual. So we'll see right away what they're made of. But this strikes me as a team that loses 10 games and gets a 4 seed.
It's definitely possible. I agree with all the things you said about Philon. He's my SEC player of the year, which maybe lukewarm take, but I think he's definitely the best player in the SEC. And I'm so happy he came back to college because I think he's a guy who could easily be a top 10 pick and what's actually looking to be a pretty talented top end of the NBA draft. One person you forgot to mention who I do love in the front court is Taylor Bowen from Florida State. I think he's the perfect four for this team. He can shoot the ball. He's got good athleticism. He can run up and down the court. I was really happy they got him. I think he's going to be a key piece. And they're just going to try to score as many points as possible. They are going to be number one in tempo in the country. I think they led the country in scoring last year in points per game. So expect a lot of firepower from this team, a lot of high intensity, and that's what's going to power this team and get them to however many wins they get in the end of the day.
Well, one of the main teams going against Alabama in the SEC is number 12 in our countdown. That is Kentucky. Mark Pope just bringing in players to this UK program, really keeping them as a blue blood. Even after the Calipari era ends, Mark Pope just comes in and arguably doing better now in this era of college basketball. By the way, I do want to say that Pope and Calipari are both doing well. Like, it was almost like that split was a good thing for Coach Cal, and for Mark Pope, it's like this is even this is really.
I'll throw it to Ariel, but you're totally right. Like, no one wants to hear that on either side, but it was a win-win parting.
Yeah, 100%. Look, I'll throw it to Ariel as well. It's a Kentucky team. The one thing I want to say, in the last exhibition game against Purdue, 10 players played at least 15 minutes per game. The guy that played the least amount of minutes, Colin Chandler, had the highest plus-minus at 15 in that game. So what that tells me is Mark Pope trusts 10 guys just like that, and all 10 can be a guy that helps them win a game, whether he's scoring or not, on any given day, and that's a scary team to go against.
Yeah, they just have so many guys that can dominate for them. I mean, you got Otega Oweh, who's probably the betting favorite for SEC Player of the Year. You have Jalen Lowe, who's awesome at Pittsburgh, even though they weren't that good last year. You bring in a top freshman, Jasper Johnson, who actually led the team in scoring in that Purdue win. You get Jaden Quaintance, who was 17 last year playing for Arizona State, and he was one of the best defenders in the country as a 17-year-old. So he is injured. He'll probably miss a good amount of the season, but when he comes back, he just adds a new element to that team. The depth is just unbelievable with this team. You can tell the NIL dollars definitely went to the right places. I could see them finishing top 5. I could see them winning a championship. This is the first team probably of all the teams we previewed where I can definitely see them winning a championship with this roster. There's obviously a lot of X factors with that, but the top end talent and the ceiling is definitely there.
Yeah, you talk about Mark Pope and you ask anybody in the profession, he is one of, if not the best X's and O's mind in the sport. And it's just, I love this fit at Kentucky. Just Kentucky will recruit itself, and you're just going to get all this loads of talent and then give a guy that knows how to maximize it versus a guy that could recruit the heck out of players, but doesn't really maximize that. Like, I just love having Mark Pope here. Quaintance it's such a shame that he's going to miss a lot of the season because he's just ready to break out and be a star. Diabate from Alabama, super talented. Lowe will benefit from shot. Like, this team is just loaded. I didn't even talk about Oweh. You talked about Ariel. Like, just so many pieces. I agree. This is a championship contender. Top 10 for sure for me.
Yeah, I will just say on Kentucky, like, there's a lot of great teams. We've talked about a lot of great teams, but it just feels right having a Kentucky team where you don't have to worry about maybe the freshmen and how they're going to play. Like I think Kentucky fans can say that they're just happy that they know what they have going into a season. Braden, I might be saying the name wrong. What's it? Braden Hawthorne. He's like almost a borderline top 100 recruit, and he's projected as like the 12th man on this team. Like, he's not probably going to play a minute. That just shows the depth. He was recruited by Duke. He enrolled at Kentucky. He was recruited by other Power 5 programs. I mean, he's starting on some Power 5 teams this year, right? Like, a guy like that is starting or one of the first guys off the bench, won't play a minute at Kentucky this season. Just shows the depth. One more team to talk to today. That is Iowa State, the Cyclones, again, out of the Big 12. I'll just throw it right back to you, Dan. Our thoughts on Iowa State, a program that's been there the past couple of seasons. What do we think for the Cyclones this season?
We just talked about a really high ceiling team. I think this is a really high floor team simply because they were good last year and they return a lot of the reason that made them good. So, like, you got Taman Lipsy, you got Milan Momcilovic, you got Joshua Jefferson all back. Like, that was the main reason you were good. And again, like, I look at another team that has a little bit of a hole in their center spot. Like, Blake Buchanan was pretty bad at UVA. Eric Mulder was not fantastic at Purdue Fort Wayne. Like, that's their one hole, but like, they got a really good backcourt, some good wings. Otzelberger's got to feel good about where this program is at. And you got a true freshman class of, I think, 4 or 5 guys that should really just slide right in and provide depth for this program. So Otzelberger's done wonders for Iowa State. And once again, like, there's no reason this team, even in like the 20th percentile outcome, like, finishes outside the top 25, I say.
Yeah, and a big reason why is because they're going to be elite defensively, as they always are. Ken Palm has them as the number 2 defense in the country. Houston's number 1, Tennessee's 3. So all familiar suspects there. I love Joshua Jefferson, not Justin Jefferson. I love him too, but he's not on Iowa State, even though they could probably use him. I actually have him as a first teamer on my All Big 12 team, which is saying a lot because I put him over PJ Haggerty, who's maybe a top 10 player in the country. I think he does so many little things well, and he's due for a big season. My real concern with this team is Lipsy's injury. He suffered an injury about 6 weeks ago. Said he should be fine for the regular season, maybe miss a couple games, but anytime you get an injury this close to the season, that could be a nagging injury. It always worries me. Also, just who's going to step up. I mean, Curtis Jones and Keyshawn Gilbert were their 2 main scorers last year, and they didn't bring in anyone who's the immediate obvious answer. Maybe it's Dominic Nelson from Utah Valley. He was the WAC player of the year last year, but I don't see Lipsy taking that step up. I don't really see Momcilovic taking that step up either. So when they need a basket, who's going to be that guy? That's my biggest concern. Besides that, though, the defense and Hilton Magic is just so strong that they'll find their way into that top 11. Maybe they go a little down to the top 20, but they'll be in the top 25 no matter what.
Yeah, look, I think Iowa State's a great team if they can be totally healthy with Lipsy going into that Players Era tournament, because they've got St. John's and Creighton on the schedule, so you better be at full strength when you're going against those teams, and a real chance to pick up some quality wins here in the non-conference. Guys, those are teams 20 through 11 here in our CBB Rank Countdown. We've got 10 more to go, one more episode to count it down, which we will release coming up on Monday. So stay tuned for that, as the college basketball season is now only a few days away. And I'm Matt Mlodzinski. That's Dan Siegel. That's Ariel Puterman. And we will talk to you next time.